A few weeks back, I read an interesting story. It was about an army man in the year 2042. He was spearheading the first ever military battalion made up of both humans and AI-powered soldiers. While going about his patrols, he successfully caught a group of enemy soldiers by surprise. His adversaries, knowing they were beat, laid down their arms and surrendered. As the man recalled from his time in the academy learning about the Geneva Convention, these individuals no longer posed a threat and should essentially be treated as civilian prisoners of war, or POWs. Unfortunately, the soldiers he was commanding did not hold the same values and gunned down these defenseless people. Due to an oversight in the AI's programming, the robots considered them as threats since they were still in uniform even though they had given up. The developers had not accounted for humanitarian law and morality during the system's conception. This scenario highlights the profound ethical questions that can arise when we utilize AI within warfare, and that is the subject of today's podcast. We will go deeper into the numerous ethical issues surrounding this topic, along with examples and arguments supporting them, as well as an ethical analysis with varied concepts and frameworks. Essentially, by AI in warfare, I am mainly referring to the broad-scale implementation of AI and machine learning-based systems within the military. As outlined by the Red Cross article I used in my research, the aim of these systems is to enhance specific areas within the army. Examples can include autonomous weapon systems, decision support systems, and cyber/information operations. Though employing AI in active combat might seem like the next logical step in the evolution of warfare, armed forces need to be aware of the potential unintentional civilian harm that can occur. Referring back to our initial scenario, this was a textbook example of what's known as AI misalignment. AI misalignment refers to the situation in which an AI's behavior diverges from the intentions and objectives of us as humans. As we have seen from the scenario, we as people had the goal of peacefully detaining those who had surrendered. However, the robots were programmed with the goal of eliminating their enemies, and the programmers had mistakenly not incorporated human morals into the machine's programming, hence causing a misalignment. To inform my research on AI misalignment and ways to prevent it, I read the insightful article, A Playbook for AI Risk Reduction, by the AI Alignment Forum. It suggests the adoption of a set of agreed upon ethical standards that AI research labs should adhere to when they are developing AI and machine learning systems. If in our story the developers of the AI robots were to follow these protocols, the whole situation could have been avoided. However, it should be noted that these protocols are not entirely universally agreed upon as of now, and some labs do not abide by them fully, so there is still work to be done here. Now, I would like to introduce a new dilemma which will allow us to assess the ethical implications of AI in war. In this case, I would like to make use of a real-world example where in 2022, the US used an autonomous drone to strike ISIS insurgents to prevent a future terrorist attack. Unfortunately, due to a decision-making blunder by the operating staff and the AI system, 10 innocent lives were lost. I learned about this from the New York Times article, The US Kills 10 Civilians in Drone Strike. From the research I conducted, I found out that what happened was that the people who were in charge of the drone had become complacent and too reliant upon the AI. They did not carry out their own judgments and assumed that the AI would make the best possible decision based on the calculations it carried out. As a result, this reduction in human agency due to AI reliance caused the unnecessary death of 10 innocent lives. To analyze this incident in further detail, I would like to call upon the topic of human agency in AI. Firstly, human agency primarily refers to a person's ability to carry out an intentional action for a given reason. It comprises of three main aspects. Number 1, control, the ability to influence outcomes based on one's decisions. Number 2, intentionality, the justification behind one's decisions. And number 3, responsibility, the ability to understand and be accountable for the consequences of one's decisions. By incorporating AI within the decision-making process in this case, the human agency of the operators was reduced. For instance, the control that they had over the situation was lessened as the autonomous weapons carried out the actions. Then, the intentionality can also be swayed as they are relying on algorithms that could have potential biases. E.g., let's say the training data for such a system was biased towards a set group of people. The AI may internalize this bias and unfairly portray people of that class in a negative light, hence not being concerned about civilians of that group. This can be prevented, however, by using diverse broad sets of training data and using bias mitigation functionality within the programming to ensure that AI adheres to ethical guidelines. But most importantly, this led to a decrease in responsibility, because instead of considering the ethical dilemma with proper human judgment and morals, the commanders decided to delegate the task to the AI. And though it may be beneficial to use them due to the insights they provide, they should not be solely relied upon, as they lack the capacity for human empathy and moral reasoning. Additionally, this situation also holds many parallels to the trolley problem covered in normative ethics. The choice made based on ethical considerations may result in the trade-off between the number of lives saved and lost. For instance, eliminating these high-value targets could potentially save lives in the long run by neutralizing future threats. On the other hand, innocent bystanders can be harmed and killed in the moment as collateral damage if the strikes are approved. To gain some valuable insight about the ethics of this situation, I consulted a good friend of mine. He's a third-year philosophy student at SOAS University and is well versed in the field of moral ethics. Here is a brief discussion we shared regarding the incident. So thanks again for agreeing to come on. It's great to have you, man. So for question one, for starters, can you explain the main ethical perspectives of the trolley problem, please?
Yeah, sure. I would say that the two main sides or ethical perspectives that one could take regarding the trolley problem are through a deontological approach or a consequentialist approach. In simple terms, deontology is concerned with the morality of actions themselves, whereas consequentialism, as the name implies, is concerned with the morality of the outcome. So, what I mean when I say this is that from a deontological perspective, murder is wrong no matter the circumstances, right? So, in the case of the trolley problem, murdering one person to save five people would still be immoral, since you're killing someone. Numbers don't matter. So, in contrast to this, the consequentialist viewpoint would be to say that the outcome of killing one person and saving five people would lead to the most benefit for the most people, because
Okay.
consequentialism is concerned with the outcome. So, if you switch the tracks to kill the one person, you're taking a moral action. Now, there are obviously further theories using these perspectives, such as materialism and utilitarianism, but these are the two premises of perspective, you could say.
Okay, thank you. Now could you go on to explain the application of utilitarianism and a deontological perspective when thinking about this example?
So the application of utilitarianism versus a deontological perspective are pretty easy to apply to this example. Simply put, a utilitarian would weigh the lives of the 10 innocents against the potential harm the terrorists could have caused, and they would look at the position of the scale, so to say, to see if this was a moral act or not. A deontological perspective would dictate that murder is wrong no matter what, so this action would just be immoral regardless of, even if there weren't civilians there, even if they just killed the terrorists, this action would
Yep.
still be immoral.
Cool. So my final question would be, who would or should be taking accountability for this?
Now, this is a really interesting question because of the involvement of AI. If the AI
Yep.
made the decision on its own after simply being pointed in a certain direction or at a certain area, then should the creators of the AI, the programmers, be held morally liable? Or should the military operatives who sent out the AI be held accountable? A
Okay.
utilitarian would again weigh which outcome would lead to the most pleasure for the most people. So, has this same AI software or drone been used in other missions? Have those been clean, so to speak? So, no other unintended casualties. If this
Hmm.
is just one freak incident, or even if this is like a 1 in 100 scenario, do those other 99 times lead to the most pleasure for the most people, i.e., safety?
Yep.
If so, then this incident could even be justified as just a casualty of war and be sanctioned as moral, right? Even if they kill the civilians in this
Yeah.
one incident. In contrast to this, a deontological perspective, this action would just always be immoral. You're still murdering people, right?
Yeah.
So who would be held accountable? Quite frankly, I would posit that both the operatives and the programmers or the creators of the software or drone should be held liable and are immoral. Their involvement in murder is unjustifiable from a deontological perspective because they're basically building a weapon to kill people.
Wow, nice. Thanks a lot, man. That was really insightful and very fascinating. You've given us lots to think about.
Thanks for having me, man. See ya.
No worries. Ultimately, I believe that it's not entirely ethical to use AI within certain aspects of the military. Even though it can have many positive applications, there is always a possibility for negative unintended consequences. Furthermore, these issues can arise from something as trivial as human oversight. For example, AI algorithms can disregard people's right to privacy under the General Data Protection Act just to achieve their objectives. Therefore, if we are able to progress with the use of AI in war, there should be much stricter guidelines, similar to what was outlined by the AI Alignment Forum. But that concludes my podcast. Thank you for listening. I hope you learned a lot, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.